So, our prospect pool overviews continue on yet again today with the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I hate to break it to you guys, this prospect pool is not all too interesting. It's ranked 28th in the Hockey News' rankings. So, obviously, it is a much weaker prospect pool, but that is to be expected. A lot of the guys that were on the team or were in the prospect pool have graduated to the team. Not that we're on the team, but yeah, so the pool now is relatively weak, although you do have some solid players that are within it, but obviously, besides that, it's pretty much just a lot of guys who played in the AHL this past year. Maybe we'll get some games up next year, but that's pretty much it. So we'll start off here with a guy we talked about last year. It's Oskar Olausson. Now, I do have to mention that we won't be talking about Jean-Luc Foudy. I decided to put in someone new, and the only player that graduated was Justice Anunen. So, obviously, that does mean that we will have a new goalie prospect to talk about. But regardless, Oskar Olausson was the guy we talked about last year. And honestly, this could be the last year we talk about him, but not because he'll go to the NHL next season. He is a wing/center from Stockholm, Sweden. He's 6'2", 181 pounds. He won the Hlinka Gretzky Bronze in 1920s. That's an error that I have on the graphic. I made the graphic before I did these, so it says gold. He did not win gold. He won bronze. My apologies. Everything else, though, should be right. He was drafted 28th overall in 2021, so a late-round pick there in 2021. And it's looking like this guy, his chance to make the NHL is very, very low, to be honest with you. He played 39 games played this past year with the Colorado Eagles, so he did miss some time, but he had 11 goals, 9 assists for 20 points. He just hasn't shown that offensive upside to justify an NHL call-up. That's the biggest thing that I have written down there. I mean, the guy had 11 goals this past year in 39 games played. Now, yes, he did miss some time with injury, but again, those offensive numbers don't particularly justify an NHL call-up for me right now. So I feel like it's going to stay as it is, and he's probably going to face another year down in the AHL. And chances are, if the Avalanche have a first-round draft pick next year and draft someone, or so what, or someone else rises above the ranks, I probably will not be talking about Olausson next year. So unfortunately, but regardless, he's kind of fallen, I don't want to say fallen off, but he hasn't lived up to the expectations that necessarily were raised for him when he was drafted. So regardless, the other guy they drafted earlier or later on, I guess, was Callum Ritchie, a center from Brampton, Canada, 6'2", 187 pounds. He won Hlinka Gretzky Gold in 22-23. He was drafted 27th overall in 2023. Now, Callum Ritchie is looking like a steal from that past year's draft. And I think that he is probably the Avalanche's best prospect overall. I don't think I'm shocking anyone there. But Ritchie this past year had a massive offensive leap. He had 50 games played this past year with the Oshawa Generals, had 28 goals, 52 assists for 80 points. So he had a terrific year with the Oshawa Generals, and just like the offensive leap was insane. Like, I think the year before he had like 30 points. He jumped by 50 this past season. So doing terrific with the Generals, and I think that we could see him bounce over to the maybe not the NHL, but the American Hockey League next season. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if he spent another year with the Generals. But obviously, as of right now, this is the team's best prospect. Next up, in his place for Jean-Luc Foudy, we are going to be talking about Nikolai Kovalenko, who played some games in the playoffs this past year for the Avalanche, looked very impressive in them, and actually could become one of the more underrated prospects in this pool. He is a right wing/left wing from Raleigh, USA. Yes, with the name Kovalenko, you would think the guy's from Russia. I believe his family is from Russia, but he was born in the States. Now, he did go over and play in the KHL. He was drafted 171st overall in 2018. Yes, so he's one of those guys, I think of him to very similar as Kirill Kaprizov, who spent a long time in the KHL and then came over to North America to play for the Avalanche. So he could be one of those very fortunate outcomes for the Avalanche. He's 5'10", 192 pounds. He went over and played 4 games with the Colorado Eagles this past year, and he obviously played with the Avalanche in the playoffs. But he did have a terrific year in the KHL for someone who, I guess he isn't that young anymore. He's in that draft class, like he's around Rasmus Dahlin's age. But he had a really good year. He had 56 games played, 21 goals, 33 assists for 54 points with Torpedo in the KHL. I think that it's possible we see Kovalenko play a full season in the NHL next season. Again, it wouldn't shock me if he does play with the Colorado Eagles a little bit, but the guy put up nearly a point per game pace in the KHL. So that shows me that he looks like he could be a very exciting Russian forward who was drafted so long ago, like 6 years ago now at this point, and he could become just an absolute steal. So I figured we'd talk about Kovalenko over Foudy. Foudy kind of took a little bit of a step back this past year, if you guys were wondering what happened to him. But regardless, Kovalenko looking very exciting there for Colorado right now. Next up is Sean Behrens of the defensive pool for the Avalanche. I got to be honest, it's a very weak pool. You have maybe Gulyayev and Malinsky, but I'm going to talk about Behrens here today. He's a defenseman from Barrington, USA. He's 5'10", 176 pounds. Again, as I mentioned, and actually both of these defensemen are 5'10". So 5'10" defensemen, they tend to, I feel like they take a little bit longer to get to the NHL, and that's what Behrens and Gulyayev are going to be having to do. He is a 2-time NCAA championship winner, so he's been with Denver for both of their championships over the last couple of years. But he played 44 games this past year for Denver, had 4 goals, 27 assists, 31 points. He was drafted 61st overall in 2021. From the reports that I've seen, he will make the jump to the NHL in 2024-2025. So that's what I would expect there from Behrens, and we'll see if he will be able to, convert to the pros with the Colorado Eagles. So we'll see if he's able to do that. Next up then, we have Mikhail Gulyayev, is the other defenseman in this list. He is a defenseman from Novosibirsk, Russia. He's 5'10", 172 pounds. He won Hlinka Gretzky Gold in 21-22. He was drafted 31st overall in 2023, so he was later in that first round, so he was there with Callum Ritchie. He had 64 games played this past year with Avangard Omsk. He had 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. I've seen reports that he's shown Cale Makar-like attributes. I don't really know how to feed into that much, because obviously Cale Makar is like an amazing defenseman, arguably the best defenseman in the NHL. So I would say that he will be, I don't want to say he'll be similar to Cale Makar. He will be a good defenseman in the NHL, but not like Cale Makar good, to be honest with you. We'll see if he does perform to that level, though. But Gulyayev, I'm looking forward to watching him play. I don't think he comes over for a few more years, though, so we have to wait a little bit before we can see that. As it goes for their goaltending prospect, I thought about Zygalov. I've seen on and off reports that he's not on the team for some reason. Justice Anunin graduated this past year and actually played really good in the NHL. But we're going to talk about Trent Miner. Trent Miner is a goalie from Brandon, Canada, 6'1", 185 pounds. He was drafted 202nd overall in 2019. If you're wondering who the hell Trent Miner is, I said the same thing when I was looking at the Avalanche depth charts. But this past year, he looked like the backup for the Eagles. He had 18 games played, 9-6-1, a 2.10, and a .930 with the Eagles this past year. He split time with the Eagles and the Utah Grizzlies. So yes, there is this team in Utah. It's from the ECHL. But regardless, I don't think Miner is an NHL level prospect. He will maybe get one game in the NHL at some point if the goalies are just all hurt. But honestly, he's a guy that you look at as your AHL, ECHL goalie. So again, that proves to you that the goaltending pool in Colorado is significantly weak. Other prospects that are in the pool for the Avalanche, you have Jean-Luc Foudy, as I mentioned. Sam Malinsky looks like a solid defenseman. And then you got Sage Weinstein and Jason Paulin as other guys that are in the depth charts, but probably won't pan out. Regardless, that is your 2024 prospect pool for the Colorado Avalanche. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Sorry for it being a not so deep, not so interesting pool to talk about. Next one is the Vancouver Canucks. That will be better. It's not one of the best, but it still will be better. There are still some good names in there. But regardless, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe down below. I greatly appreciate it. And anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.